Huh.
Okay, Dylan, we're recording right now, just so you know.
I got the message.
Okay. All right. Are you still in Orlando?
No,
Okay. Are you
I'm
not
in
happy?
Illinois. I'm in Illinois for like another 24 hours.
And then what?
Houston,
Houston.
we have a problem.
Wow. So Shoden's going to Texas and you're going to be in Texas too?
I'm moving.
What?
Let's
Yeah.
take that discussion offline. I don't want to waste any more time getting to our special guest here.
Our special guest tonight. I'm really
Super happy to have
excited.
Kay Trevor joining us today. Maureen is going to take over the show here and get the introduction going here.
Okay, I'm going to have KT introduce himself. He is really an impressive man in the real estate passive and active space. And I don't think I could do you justice by introducing you, but if you would like to tell us where you started from to where you're at today.
Sure. So my name is Trevor. Welcome. Thanks everybody for having me. I'll put my contact info in the chat. And I also do have a video that I tease everybody that I'm the world's most interesting man. So you can watch that video. If you like it, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. And it's because I've had a very unique life. So I'm originally from Niagara Falls, Canada. I started at age 13 working for Ripley's Believe It or Not. I worked there all through high school. Then I worked for Guinness World of Records for 18 years. So I met the founder of the Guinness Book of Records. I ran one in Niagara Falls, Canada. I ran one in the Empire State Building in New York, opened up one on Hollywood Boulevard in Los Angeles, California. Did that for 18 years. Had the world's tallest lady worked for me for about 6 of those years. We used to travel and be on television shows. Met Michael Jackson before all the problems, and we gave him a Lifetime Achievement Award and actually had lunch with him and a bunch of other people. He had just signed the largest record contract ever. That was on his second to last comeback. And then met Robert Downey Jr. when I started working for iFly when he flew in the tunnel. So then I got moved to Orlando, Florida to open a Guinness. I didn't get the rights. So strangely enough, I opened a year-round haunted house. And then I got recruited by iFly Indoor Skydiving. At one of our first team meetings, we were given a copy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I went, wow, this is impressive. Put it back on the shelf and kept working. Big mistake. So one of my lessons is don't wait to buy real estate and wait. And then 20-year career with them, opened 46 of 80 locations all over the world. And we got bought up by a private equity company. And so my first excuse not to do real estate, I was afraid of toilets, tenants, and trash. And then my second was no time, no money. And then once we got the buyout, the no money one went away. So I started passively investing in real estate. And in 5 years, I've been a passive investor in 20. So I've been an LP in 20 syndications. 7 of them have gone full cycle. And I'm a GP on my third. We're just finalizing a raise for 10-acre land entitlement just outside of Austin in Georgetown. And then we're launching a couple of 506B deals. One actually launched last week and one's going to launch this week. And that's all because I joined up with Massive Capital, which is going to give me a lot more deal flow and a lot more things to go. I've become super passionate about talking about real estate, connecting with people in real estate. So I try to produce a lot of educational material on my YouTube channel, recommend a lot of books to read. So it's very important for me to help people understand. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. Oh, and I got let go during COVID. So I switched to being full time. On my passive investments until this month was my first where I total loss of investors' capital on a deal. So until then, I was just, my worst case scenario was I got my money back. And this month, the world's going a little crazy. And I got 2 cash calls and 1 total loss of capital. But the world's not all bad. My best one tripled my money in 20 months. So
Tripled,
overall, I'm still ahead.
tripled.
Yeah,
Yeah,
tripled in 20 months. It's not too
that's really,
shabby.
yeah, that's really
I'll
terrible.
take a few more of those, please. But and then my first GP deal, I spent 6 months of my life trying to close a 240 unit. We were doing a loan assumption, a third-party pref equity stack along with investor capital. Never could get the lender to approve the third-party equity, and ended up not being able to close. And we lost a total of $350,000, of which 75 was mine. So that was a really hard lesson on my first GP. My second GP, we couldn't close. We didn't raise enough money. Hindsight, it's a good thing we did because we had a terrible loan for, it was only 18 months. And right now we'd be coming due in a few months at terrible rates. So kind of good it didn't close. So that's kind of my story. I don't know what your format is, but I love talking. I love answering questions. Although I can't see Douglas's face. He looks like he's incognito over there.
Yeah, the
And
lighting looks
Douglas
like
is
I'm
really the only
witness.
one so far that I kind of know in this group. So I don't know what your format is, but I'm a total open book. I believe in telling the good, bad, and the ugly about real estate investing, and thank goodness there's more good.
KT, I'm on 60 Minutes. I'm a whistleblower in a case. So
Is that what it is?
that's the lighting in the room. No, it's terrible.
Okay. What was, if you had to define an aha moment in your career, just one, what would it be?
Yeah, so I would think so. I was afraid of toilets, tenants, and trash, and a lot of people are, and I really didn't understand it. And it wasn't until I finally went to the right, I went to weekend webinars where they said, "Give us $50,000, and we'll tell you how to buy an office building with no money down on a credit card," and just crazy stuff. And then I finally went to a proper weekend seminar where they talked about multifamily syndication. And I got to tell you, the light bulb popped on because I've done that in my previous life. With iFly, we took over some franchise locations and I understood the concept. Okay, we're giving our money to people that are experienced. We're buying an existing business that is backed by an asset. We're going to spend some money and make it nicer. We're going to improve the NOI, which we're going to sell for a multiple. So in our business, it was EBITDA, earnings before depreciation, interest, and taxes, almost the same. And then we're going to sell it for a multiple of that. And it wasn't until the light bulb got through my thick little head and I went, oh, I understand this. This is completely different. I had no idea that's what basically the syndication model was. And I would say that was my biggest aha moment.
That sounds impressive.
Yeah.
I think we all have one of those in our career, and I think that it changes the path of where we're going indefinitely.
Yeah.
And I think you aligned with that. That's amazing that you did that. I wanted to know, since you've invested in so many different asset classes as a passive investor, what tips do you have for us as an LP in vetting sponsors?
Yeah, so number one is vetting sponsors, right? No matter what it is, your sponsor. So my big win, my 3 times my money in 20 months, I actually researched that sponsor for about a year. And I started going to just meetings like this. Oh, I found out that they were going to be there and I went and listened to them. And to be honest, I really enjoyed their honesty and they talked about things that went good, went bad. And then they actually had a training course. They were teaching about asset management, which is something I was interested in. So I went to their asset management training course and there was a free one. And then I did a paid one. And then I said, I can't invest in this deal now, but can you put me on the distribution list for the investor updates? I just want to get an idea of what you're doing. Because you can tell a lot from investor updates. You can really tell a lot about, what are they doing? How disclosing are they? Are they is it all sunshine and rainbows, right? Because we all look wonderful. I look amazing on Facebook, by the way. I do nothing but wonderful things, but it's not exactly true. We're running businesses. And so you really want people that are open, honest, and can share, hey, this didn't quite go. And they talked about a deal that didn't go as well as they hoped. And that just inspired me to invest. So number one, most important thing is who you give your money to. The second most important thing is I call it the first is the jockey, then there's the horse, and the horse can be whatever asset class you decide that you're going to invest in. So most of my initial investments were in multifamily, and I picked multifamily because that's where my first education was. I also believed that people needed a place to live. I also understood the concept of buying it, improving it, and being able to sell it for more. So picking your asset class, and even within the asset class, you got to have, you got to know what all the different levels are, right? So most of the original ones I invested in were deep value add. And I'll be honest, my first two passive investments, they missed it. And it was just return of capital. And then again, the other one was a value add, deep value add. And again, I tripled my money. So one of the things you got to know about those deeper value adds, you're trying to get a grand slam, but sometimes you strike out or you just get a single or a double. And you got to make sure that you understand that. And then also very important, and I'm quite lucky living in Texas. I don't know if I said that at the beginning. I'm in Austin. Texas is the hot market. All you crazy people from California are coming here, bringing all your money, and it's good for business. Now, it made the market heat up quite a bit, but it's still a landlord-friendly, pro-business state. Where I tripled my money was Arizona and Tucson, same thing. A lot of people move in there, landlord-friendly state. Has its own challenges that Texas doesn't have. Texas has a lot of challenges right now with property taxes and insurance. I don't know if you remember last year we had snow. They called it Snowgeddon. Did you know that Snowgeddon was a bigger insurance claim than Katrina? Think about that. Just think, I mean, Katrina, right? People just like living in 10 feet of water, pretty staggering. And Snowgeddon, just because it was so widespread with lots of different types of damage, actually was a bigger insurance claim, and then I do have investments in both of the Carolinas as well, north and south. No, we get.
Okay, good. There we go. Okay, I'm sorry about that.
That's
So
okay.
you're in Arizona, Texas, both the Carolinas.
Both the Carolinas.
And
I'm in, and most of my investments are multifamily, and I have everything from deep C-class, deep value add to A-class new build. So I've got most of them again are value add. The one in Arizona, the second one I put my money in is actually a B-class property. The first one was a C. And then I've done a couple of land entitlement deals. So that's just where you're buying the land and getting it entitled to be able to build on. And then I built on land. I've invested passively in Katy, Texas, a new build, and it's an A+. And then I've also invested just outside of Dallas in Denton, Texas, a new build that basically what happens, so you get the land entitled, then you build on it, and then you normally sell it to somebody who's a long-term operator. So I have a passive investment there as a long-term operator. I also have impeccable timing. So my first retail investment closed March 15th, 2020. Great time to buy a retail strip center in Plano, Texas. Thank goodness that investment is paid 5% cash on cash. Nothing exciting, less exciting now with high inflation, but they managed to move all of the tenants to triple net leases. And then if interest rates hadn't have gone a little bit crazy, probably they would have been able to sell it this year, but they're waiting for the world to calm down a little bit because triple net leases are the golden standard for retail. So you're going to have, it's a safe investment, so more institutional money will go after it. And then I'm also an investor in a new build self-storage in just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. And that was my first storage deal. So I got a little bit of story about that. So I found somebody I know, like, and trust. I looked at about 6 deals that came through her and sent. Nothing quite fit my little buy box. And I wanted to have an investment in the Carolinas. north, and I love the Charlotte area because I have a brother there and I know the area well. And I wanted to have an investment in storage. So somebody I know, like, and trust in the Carolinas, new build storage. Didn't take me long to decide that I was in. I spent a little bit of time researching the local partners, just to make sure that she'd aligned herself with some good people, and she had, thank goodness. And actually now become, good friends with them, and looked at a couple of their deals. Haven't quite fit to invest in them yet.
Yeah, that's interesting, where you're investing, and you've kind of moved from multifamily to commercial and
Yeah, and
even
again, I
new
only, like,
construction.
out of all the investments I have right now, it's still 80% multifamily.
I've noticed that you've joined the GP side. What are the factors that drove you to that decision?
Losing my job was the biggest factor. So I got let go during COVID, and I still needed more than just passive income. And so as a general partner, though, my first GP deal, I told, I lost $75,000 and spent 6 months of my life trying to get that deal closed. So there are risks on the GP side, but there are also rewards on the GP side. So I just closed another deal. The second deal I closed, I didn't get any acquisition fees, just a small, very small GP stack. But on my next deal I closed in San Antonio, we did have some acquisition fees. And then, of course, as a part of the GP team, I call it, it's not really money for nothing, but you work really hard for your GP share, but it amplifies your investment, right? So you have only time, which I have because I lost my job, and you get a percentage value, passively invested in my own deal there as well. And I am the asset manager as well. I share it with a couple of other people, and it's a smaller property. So the first one that fell apart, wasn't get rich quick, but it was at least $1,400 a month or whatever, asset management fees. I think this one's $380 a month, and we're actually not even taking it till we start making investor distributions.
Is that multifamily or
It is.
commercial?
It's 75 doors in San Antonio. It's a deep value add. So the interiors are actually really nice, but the previous owner who bought it basically did nothing for 3 years, but run it into the ground, and then we bought it from them.
And do you have property management in-house as well?
We do. Very fortunately, she's my partner in the deal. She's actually the lead sponsor, and she'd been helping me I made tons of offers on deals, and she helped me a lot. And then we finally got a deal together. So having her as a partner is a great thing. Also, too, just to make sure we protected the investors, we also have an agreement that her property management company can be terminated. So there's 3 of us on the GP team, so 2 of us have to agree to remove her, and then we can as the property manager.
So what is the dynamic of the third partner? We have property management, your asset.
Yeah, and so
what is the skill set?
He's the financial guy. I'm not a good numbers guy. And so you do not ever want me to do your underwriting. I can read them, I can look at them, I can figure them out. So he basically has been taking care of the financial side and the marketing side, and I've been taking care, because it's a pretty deep value add. We've got a lot of construction crews right there. I've been going once a week. I've been doing the facility and operation side.
Perfect. It just sounds like a perfect partnership to me.
It is, yeah. We work really well together. And then he was there because last week I went to Best Ever, and of course that was the day our lender decided to do his tour. So he went and did it, and it's really kind of funny. Some people would be upset about it, but he actually assigned about 15 work projects to me. We have a thing called Asania, and he kept taking these pictures and assigning them to me. So he visited the property for the first time in a while, and but the fresh set of eyes, you can't be afraid of that kind of stuff, right?
Yes.
You just can't be afraid of, so it was good that he went. And sometimes you lose the forest for the trees, right? We're replacing tons of wood rot and concrete sidewalks, and that's what I'm looking at. I'm walking past some other things because I'm so focused on those.
Yeah, the more eyes, the better.
Yeah.
I think. And I love the structure of your partnership, and everybody brings their skill sets to the table. And those are I love partnerships, and I've been in several, and those are the partnerships that work the best, I think,
Yeah.
because everybody has something. They're industry pros, and you're together on a project, and you have the
Yeah,
same
we've been really
goals.
lucky. We've got a
Yeah.
very good team dynamic. We're quite fortunate. And the beauty of it is we all feel comfortable being challenged.
Well, I think that's important for life in general.
Yeah.
So that's really great. Yeah, you've been around for a couple of recessions like I have, and you've seen some ups and downs in the real estate market. What mindset guided you through the challenging projects in the past?
Well, so first of all, she said I was old. That was a polite way to say I'm
I
old.
thought, no, I did
So
not.
you gotta remember, I've only been doing real estate. So again, I waited way too long. So I sat on the sidelines and watched and missed all kinds of things go by and didn't do it. I'd be a totally different, I'd probably be doing this call from the Bahamas or something if I'd have started investing earlier. Because I really, once I got sold in it, I really believe in the power of it. But some of the things that I think are really important. So I'm old enough to remember that I had a mortgage that had a 16% interest rate. Can you imagine that? Now,
Yes.
luckily back then I could also buy a house for, $34,000 with a $10,000. Well, it was 40. I had a $10,000 guy. Canada, they gave grants to first-time home buyers of $10,000, and but again, when you think about it, and then to see what had happened, so 4 or 5% interest rates are kind of normal, right? Clearly 16 isn't. So what happened is we went this way to abnormal, right? 2, 3, 4% interest rates, and then in record time, like crazy record time, now we're 6, 7, 8. And it's been such a massive adjustment. It's such a shock to the system. And that's why, like, the one investment total loss of capital was misinsured, which, by the way, got to believe me, I checked my insurance on everything else. They didn't have enough insurance to cover a fire, and ended up having to basically, sell the place and walk away. And they ended up having to put in $70,000, the GPs did, just for everybody to walk away at zero. But I've had 2 cash calls, and all those cash calls are because of the interest rates. Another hard lesson I learned, I asked, did you buy a cap rate? And they said yes. You know what I didn't ask? Did you actually stress test the underwriting that you had to pay to the max of it? I didn't ask that question. And of course, who would have thought, right? People were buying these cap rate reserves and never, basically like wasting insurance money, but you needed to have them to be safe. The next thing you know, the world has gone crazy, and you have to, you have to pay the difference in interest rate. And so they just didn't have enough money to keep afloat.
And do you feel that that is the current weather of the market today?
Yeah, so it was interesting. So I was at a conference. I was at Best Ever, and I was at another one, and people started to coin this crazy phrase, survive till 25. And I was hoping 24, to be honest. I'd rather say survive to 24. It just probably doesn't rhyme, so maybe that's why they didn't say it. But this concept of it's going to take a while to get normal. But for people who are ready and people who are aggressive, I just posted on Facebook a little earlier, this 1800 banker said the best time to buy real estate when there's blood in the streets, even if it's your blood.
True.
And then Warren Buffett also said, and there's a lot of people we're going to find out, nobody knows you're swimming naked till the tide goes out. And there's going to be it's not a pretty sight, but there's going to be some people that are there's going to be some buying opportunities for those that can do it right.
I agree with you. I mean, we've been in a long seller's market for a long time, and so I think that it's a much needed correction.
Yeah.
And yes, there's definitely some opportunities. Not that we, want to be negative or have anyone suffer or anything like that. But I think this bank that fell kind of woke up a lot of people.
It did. And, and there's a lot of people too that, I mean, I was at, again, Best Ever in Neobawa, and I found out his presentation, he actually gave it probably a little more serious than he should have, because he's trying to sell. He has enough cash to rescue your deals if you need it. So I think he over accentuated some of the negativity, but he definitely, one of the points he made is that a lot of partnership teams are going to let their ego get in the way of what's best for investors. I'm going to somehow muscle through this. And when you're cash flow negative, it's pretty hard to muscle through, right? Against the projects that had a cash call, they were only like in the 70s occupancy. So they made some serious, they put new management companies in, and if they can get up to the 90s occupancy, then their cash flow will be sufficient. But there are some people that are in the 90s and their occupancy, big rent bumps are kind of like cooling off for sure. There's still rent bumps to be had. They're just not like, I mean, I talk to people that, oh, I put my rent up $300 and I didn't even renovate. I mean, those days I think are gone for a while.
Yeah, and rightfully so, I think. I've heard that Best Ever, I haven't been, but I've heard that it is the
It's the
best.
best ever. It's a really
Yeah,
good
it's the
one.
best
I know
ever.
Randy was there. I saw her there. And yeah, it is an awesome conference. Unfortunately, the big sale is over. They always have a sale the weekend right after it, and it's the cheapest ticket ever. But if you can still buy a ticket now at a pretty good rate. And then if it gets close to it, there's lots of people with sad stories selling their ticket at the cheaper rate. So, I had a friend that unfortunately broke a leg and couldn't go, and was trying to sell his ticket. And but it is really, it's in Salt Lake City in April next year.
Oh, is it? I know Randy said that she went last year and her husband fell in love with it, and it was in
Yeah,
Denver, I think, my
yeah, it was.
hometown.
And they went this year again. I saw them there.
Yeah, she said she was going to go. So I haven't been. I think Doug has been, but I have not gone. So it sounds like it's the best. And if I choose one, it'll probably be that one, depending on where it is. And I like
Yeah,
Salt Lake.
it's an interesting one because so many of the others are sponsored by syndicators and they do a lot of selling. This one there's certainly some selling, but it's very subtle and it's not really. And then there's some big operators there. But again, it's not a hard sell conference. And there's a lot of education information, and 1,100 people in the same hotel for 3 days. There's people there I never even saw that, we had said, let's make sure we connect. And if you don't text and have a meeting point, you're going to miss them.
Yeah, I like that kind of environment better. I like the educational rather than the hard sell. And then also an opportunity to network and just kind of float around. And you just learn so much at those
Yeah.
events when you network, and it's just phenomenal. And I think that it's really good to have those in masterminds and academies. And I think it's just important today that we are listening to the right people and working with the right people that actually do have industry experience, that have done deals, that have been successful, that maybe have definitely made mistakes, because
Yeah.
none of us get there without making those mistakes and experiencing those losses and having those real conversations about goals and challenges and helping each other. And I like that type of energy better than being lectured to and saying, this is some of the top sales, this is how we do it, and this is the way that I did it, and this is the way that it works. I won't mention names because I'm being discreet today, but I think that we're all in agreement here that we like the more soft sell, so people are open and interested in what we want to do and help us along the way. And I'm interested in knowing what you're excited about next in business.
So joining up with Massive Capital, and that's just happened this year, and I've known them for quite a few years, but they weren't really in any sort of doing anything until last year. And then I started watching them do it. And then now that I'm part of the group, it's very interesting. I refer to them as extremely aggressive, entrepreneuristic apartment syndicators. So most of the deals they're doing with people that already have a deal but need help to close a deal. Or one of the deals we're launching next week, they closed. They didn't raise enough money. They took a short-term loan to pay, and now they're going to fill up the rest of the raise to finish the capex and pay back the short-term loan. So they're very entrepreneuristic. And so I think with all the things that are going to happen, it's going to, it's definitely going to, they're going to have some deal flow for sure.
Yeah, that sounds good. Has there been a change in raising capital since the rates have gone up?
It's definitely tough. I mean, I should be really good at raising capital and I'm not that good. It's very disappointing, but it's super hard. People are super nervous. They really are. And they should be. But again, we all know, right? If there's blood in the streets, even if it's yours, it's time to buy real estate. Like, again, you don't want to be foolish, but it is the time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel I get asked that question all the time because I've had multiple brokerages for several decades, and it just depends. I tell them on individualistic analysis of what the buyers and sellers needs are. And, there's a lot of different scenarios that happen outside of interest rates. Yeah. I have bought property at high interest rates. I remember when the rates, and this is going to age me too, went up to 21%. Okay, oh, wow. So, and I was an investor and owned a brokerage in Colorado. So you have to be creative, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I think it matters what kind of projects, what are you putting your land in? I see a lot of the billionaires buying large tracts of land. What do you think about that?
They're smart. I mean, if you think about it, 90% of all millionaires became through real estate. And land is a much longer play, because you could be waiting decades for some pieces of land to be developed. Again, like the one that we're developing, we're 10 acres in the middle of probably 200 acres that's being developed with all different types as everybody grows outside of Austin, right? So this is in Georgetown. It's 30 minutes from my house, 30 minutes from downtown. And so that one's in the path of progress. So it goes quickly. But there are other people that are just land banking and just, holding it. I mean, where I live today, 5 years ago, I drove by cows. And now I drive by 30,000 apartments and a light rail stop.
I know. I'm still fascinated at the fact that where you came from in Canada to Texas. I mean, how do you become that person?
Which person?
Professionally or personally, from where you started to who you are today. I mean, Canada to Texas is dynamic in itself.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been entrepreneurial. I mean, I could have started my career at age 8 when I cut 3 lawns, and I used to get $1 to trim the bushes at my parents' house. And my dad was a minister, and people used to have to take turns cutting the church lawn, and I would put a sign up board saying, "For $20, I'll take your turn." I was an ambitious little bugger, and it hasn't changed, right? And it's just always been that way, always been entrepreneurial. I missed so many things out of like the things I did. I opened up, if anybody's been to Branson, Missouri, I also opened up the Hollywood Wax Museum there for the guys that owned the Hollywood Wax Museum in Hollywood Boulevard that bought the Guinness. And I actually worked for them while I still worked for the franchise and helped them open up the wax museum, hired all their team, put their systems in place. So I've always been very entrepreneurial. And, being from Canada just means I say I'm sorry when I bump into you and it's your fault.
I have clients from Canada.
Have you ever heard that Robin Williams said Canada's a very nice family that moved above a biker bar?
No,
Well said.
no, but I love
Well
him.
said. Well said.
Yeah.
It's true.
You know, although I got to tell you, lately it makes California look conservative. They've really, like, they locked down forever for COVID. They've done lots of things since I've left. You know, it's always was somewhat socialist. Part of the reason why I left. I like a more pro-business climate.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely changed. I have a lot of clients up there and some friends that I've done a lot of journeys with, and yeah, they're not happy. I'll say they're not happy, and some of them are in the oil and gas industry. So it's definitely changed.
Can you hit
Yeah.
up my G that is in there in the back?
Who do we have that's talking? Turn your mic.
Maureen, I would like to suggest, if we could, KT, thank you again so much for
Yeah.
taking us through your journey. I thought it would be awesome to go ahead and open up the floor to the audience in case they had questions from the process here. And if anything popped up in your mind and wanted to pick the brain of one of the best operators I know, this is a great opportunity to learn from KT.
Douglas is always nice to me. He could have been Canadian.
So Haley, you had a question?
Yeah,
I think
I have a couple questions. So, so you started investing. What was the smallest amount that you started investing? And another question is, what do you think about Grant Cardone?
Okay, so I've invested as small as 25,000, and it was because I wanted to invest in deals. So you have to be careful when you're going to invest less than the minimum, or at least as a sponsor, because you're only allowed 35 sophisticated investors in a deal. I happened to be accredited at the time, so I didn't mess with their numbers. I had a friend and I said, listen, all I got is 25K in my self-directed IRA. Will you let me invest? So I've actually done that 4 times. And then the most I've ever invested in any deal is 100. But I would say on average, I'm about a 50 through things. And, you know, basically the second something comes, I know we're getting close to the end and I start looking, because I don't want my cash to be idle. And I've always tried to reinvest it. You know, I talk a lot about the multiples, right? So I always tell this story. If you can double your money every 5 years, so take 100, make it 2, make it 4, make it 8, make it 1.6, make it 3.2. I wish I had started when I was 30, because I'd have 3.2 just from that first investment. So that's again why I say buy real estate and wait. So I love Mr. 10X. I would never invest in his real estate deals. So I'm a 10Xer. That man has changed my life reading his books. So if you haven't read them, do them in Audible. Do 10X first. Then you got to listen to Be Obsessed or Be Average second. Do it on Audible. Do it in that order. And start to put some of those principles in your life, and it will change your life for sure. But he's very fee heavy. He's brags about overpaying, and I believe he does. But is he a genius, and does he get good deals? And has he become filthy rich? Yes. And does he pay investors? Yes. I've heard on average it's closer to 10% IRR than what he brags that he's doing. And do I think eventually he could end up on securities fraud? Probably. Because he's a big target, right? And they go after big targets. So I would not buy his real estate. I got a friend who used to do taco licenses for stores, and he bought an apartment complex in Boca Raton and carved out the front and put in retail, which again is very smart. And a friend of mine actually said, I got a lease signed by Grant Cardone. He opened up a taco something franchise down there. So it's pretty cool. So is he a genius? Absolutely. Is he driven? Absolutely. But do I ever recommend anybody to join his real estate course? No. Or invest in his deals? No. Other than he does have options where people can come in for smaller amounts, like 10 grand, right? So, because you're just not going to get into too many deals. And he's probably better than crowdfunding or REITs. So, you know, I would say he's in between that and what I'm going to call traditional normal syndications. But he's very fee heavy. And that's, you know, you buy a $60 million apartment complex and take a 4% acquisition fee, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, and not only that, KT, I have seen data to suggest that he buys at one price and then resyndicates back out at a higher price, and I'm not particularly fond of that.
But
Anyone
his
else?
books, listen to his books. If you haven't, do it on Audible. Way better than reading it.
Yeah, I met him. He was one of my mentors, along with Tom Hopkins and Tony Robbins and Donald Trump, and read their books. And I completely agree with you.
Come on, somebody's got to have a question.
I have a couple of questions. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, my name's Alana. I actually just met Doug and
Maureen.
Darlene. Just the other day. But I had a couple questions. One is about the self-directed IRA. Is that wise to put into real estate?
It definitely is. And again, you got to remember, if you have a current job, chances are you're not going to be able to. So it's going to have to be from a previous employer, and then you can roll it into self-directed. And again, it is one of the highest fee-based products out there. Company 401ks, that's why they don't let you take them out. That's why they make you do them. They're super, super high in fees. Now there are some fees that you're going to pay from your, you know, the company that you use, but far less. And then at least you know what you're buying, right? You know, you can invest in a person, you know, in an asset you can see and touch. A couple of things that I learned the hard way. You do not get any of the bonus depreciation because it's already a taxable thing. So I made a mistake. One time I had cash and I had some IRA money and I invested it into a deal where I could have got a great depreciation on and didn't realize I didn't. So I always make sure anytime I make a mistake, I try to tell somebody, don't make that same mistake. There are some of these UBIT taxes and other things you got to worry about. To date, they've not been anything to me, but you got to be just aware that they do have some tax implications, but generally they're fantastic.
And let me draft off of KT there. I just dropped in the chat EQRP, which is a solo 401k product that if you do have a more intense, say you want to flip properties, you might want to seriously look at a solo 401k. But again, we don't want to go too far in the weeds, but there is a great education resource on through EQRP. They talk a lot about that. And Joel Landon, their expert, is world class in terms of the differentiations between the different products on that.
And they'll send you a free book. Yeah, and they'll send you a free book every year out too for the solo 401 too through EQRP.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's actually self-directed. It's from my own business, so it's actually my funds. And last year I lost about $15,000, which was really fun, of money that I put in it. So not even matched. And then the other question is about when you, in terms of just being a limited partner on a larger multi-family deal, when you're offered a percentage and there's going to be, your funds are kind of locked in for about 6 years or plus until they refinance. What do you think that sometimes those funds could be used for other shorter term?
Yeah, so it really depends what your needs are, right? So when I first started investing, it was just to multiply my wealth, right? I could care less about cash flow. I could care about anything. I cared about a multiple of earnings. But then as I needed some cash, I cared more about cash flow and other things. And so I always suggest, especially if you're going to do multiple, that you balance things out a little bit. You know, you do a couple of asset classes, you do a couple of projects. So for example, the storage that I'm involved in, once they reach stabilization, they're going to refi. And the goal is to give us about 50% of our money. We won't be diluted on that. The only time we get diluted on that deal is when they double my money, it goes to a 50-50 split. And I'm like, double my money, baby. I want you to get rich, because doubling my money and I still own half of what I owned before, I'm very happy. But you got to make sure that you balance out right, and that what you put your money in, you know, does it. So there are definitely some short-term deals. So for example, my land entitlement is only one I can talk about because it's a C, you know, it's a 2-year deal. So your money's in and out in 2 years. And again, that's assuming we can sell the land. We do tell people we've got a year extension if we need it on the loan, but yes, you're right. Most of your money is tied up in a deal, and particularly right now in the time that we live in, very difficult to find cash flow, especially in multifamily. There are cash flow in some other asset classes, but I don't understand them enough to tell you if it's real. They just seem to pop up, you know, and everybody's telling you, like, I've seen these crazy oil and gas things that have been popping up lately. I'm sure you've all seen them, and I just don't understand it. And I'm a simple Canadian, and my mama said, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So I've not invested in one. So I'm either a genius or an idiot. And if everybody who invested in them triples their money, man, I'm going to be sorry I missed it. But I want to make sure at least I understand enough about it. And I just don't understand enough about it. And not that I understand everything about multifamily, but, you know, I understand that people need places to live, and if you make those places better to live, you can charge more. And if you run them better, you can make more, and then you sell it for a multiple. I understand that.
Well, for the record, our good friend Shoden is a petroleum engineer and a genius at energy. So if you ever seriously want to look at it, hook up with Shoden. He can give you the inside track on that.
Awesome. Oh, I see he's got an oil rig right behind him. I should have known.
And he's on his way to Texas.
That's right. You got a lot of oil in Texas.
Okay, and then the last question was about just merchant, what's it called? Merchant investor, and investing in those particular entities.
So you're kind of breaking up a bit.
I apologize, I am driving right now.
That's okay.
So I was saying merchant, a merchant vendor.
Yes. So I don't know enough about them, and I like to know who I'm giving my money to. Not only the capital raiser, but at least the key people on the team and the key boots on the ground. So I don't know enough about that. You know, and I've got some friends that have been doing some of the, you know, groundbreaker stuff, and they claim they're doing really well. But I like to know who I'm giving my money to. That was whole part of getting out of the stock market, right? Elon Musk and Bill Gates have never introduced themselves to me yet, even though they should have. And their businesses are so affected by the world. Not that real estate isn't, but, you know, Russia attacks Ukraine and Apple stock goes down. It's got nothing to do with Apple stock. And so I chose to get off of that and try to get on to real assets versus companies that generate products that are commodities.
Okay. And one last question, sorry to take the stage. When you are a limited partner, can you say that you have this in your portfolio, or is that only when you're a GP?
No, you can definitely say that you have it in your portfolio. You know, so even when I bought my first property, I had to do a schedule of real estate and I listed my limited partners. The difference is you can only kind of list the value of whatever the appraised value is. As a GP, right, you have some ownership, but you haven't gotten cash for it. So it increases your net worth, but you've got no cash. So as a limited partner, it's basically your cash, maybe plus, like, let's say put 50,000 in the deal. Chances are at best on your financial statement, you know, might be 55 or 60. It's not going to be your hopeful 100 when you cash out in 5 years. So it'll only count pretty much as the cash you have in, and maybe a little bit more if they've done the statement of values, which every property has to do them for retirement funds and stuff. So you can ask for those.
But you can just say, if you're invested in anything, you can say this is.
That's correct. It goes to your net worth statement. That's correct.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I used to have a joke. So, you know, I put $50,000 in a $60 million deal, and I said I owned 50 doorknobs. Because I probably own 2 kitchens, maybe, but that's, you know, it's kind of funny. And even when you see GPs, you know, I've got 1,800 doors. Well, you've got 3% of 1,800 doors, you know, which is probably 1,800 doorknobs. But you know, it's how our industry talks, right? I mean, I'm an passive investor in 2,500 doors, but I don't give the illusion that I own 2,500 doors. 2,500 doorknobs, probably.
Yeah, the value of some hardware. Okay, great. Thank you.
No, pleasure.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because the terminology of the industry today is deceiving in a lot of, I think, novices and even some veterans that, you know, like us, that have been around for a while. It's not really what it seems to be, and we just have to be really careful and do our homework and our due diligence.
Yeah, and it's very different. So, I mean, I have 65 doors in Columbia, South Carolina, and I own 3% of the GP stack. I have 75 doors in San Antonio, and I own 15% of the GP stack. Big difference, you know. So that's Senate, and I have fees that I'm collecting on asset management stuff. But again, I still, on 75 doors, I only own 15%. And in theory, that's 15 of 30%, because the investors own the other 70%.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's important to clarify it.
Yeah. But again, I understand why people do it, because they want to build credibility. So again, when you're doing your due diligence and vetting a sponsor, that's why I said we all look great, right? I can send you my thing and I list all my real estate and all my big account, but at the end of the day, you want to dig down just a little bit deeper to get an understanding of who are you giving your money to and who's actually running that deal. Because in today's world, there are a lot of people raising money, just because money's been so hard to get. People are, you know, everybody's raising money.
Yes, it's been
Sure
practically
you know,
free for a
and
long
you want
time.
to know who's doing the deal and who's actually responsible for implementing the business plan. That's hugely important. And are they doing this full time? Have they done this before? Have they run businesses before? You know, there's this one guy here in Texas, you know, he brags that he's still got a full-time job and he owns 6,800 doors. And I'm thinking, you're not getting my money. I don't want you to have a full-time job that you can't take a call on when something goes important. You're just depending on a third party to manage your properties. And again, third parties do 90% of the work, but a properties manager's job is to do the least amount of work for the biggest reward. And an asset manager's job is to make sure that you squeeze those nickels and dimes out of everything you look at and touch, because they add up to be dollars for your investors.
Well, KT, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I every time I listen to you, I learn a nugget, and thank you so much for sharing your investing wisdom.
Great group here. I
Yeah,
had no
we
idea
really
what I was
are.
walking into.
Yeah, really thrilled with the turnout. Maureen, also wonderful job hosting today. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
hosting. Fantastic job.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone. And if you want to reach out to KT, how do they reach out to you if
I
they
put
would
my
like to know
link
more?
tree in the chat, so you can get that, and that has everything from book a calendar, my YouTube channels, all of those things are in there. And
Perfect.
happy to connect with anybody. Please subscribe to my YouTube and watch the video and say, am I the world's most interesting man? It's a fun video.
I will. I'm going to do that. It sounds really fun. Thank you so much for being here. I'll
Well,
see
it's
you
my
next
Thank
pleasure.
week.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Anybody else?
thank you.
Anything else?
No, we will follow. Thank you so much, KT.
Oh,
That
you've
was
got a
great.
great accent. Where are you from?
From Argentina originally, 30 years ago.
Awesome. That was Buenos Aires was one of my favorite cities. So when I worked at the haunted house, we used to I did a tour to Brazil and Buenos Aires, because we would bring up school kids to buy. I used to work also for, oddly enough, Athlete's Foot shoe store, and they used to all come up and buy shoes because they were so expensive in South America.
Yeah,
Buenos Aires was such a beautiful city. I mean,
it's
it was,
beautiful.
the
It's more
food was
beautiful right now.
incredible, and it was without a doubt one of the prettiest cities I've been to.
Yeah, it's more beautiful right now. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a
Really.
very nice city.
Perfect. Thank you so much, KT. I have some money sitting in the bank right now, and I don't know what to do, but so with the help of Maureen, though, I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to put it. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
don't
we're-
let it sit in the bank. That's the only thing I can
Wow.
say. Don't put it foolishly into a deal. There's always another one coming, but
Yeah.
don't let it sit in the bank. Keep it
Yeah,
moving.
I know. It's losing value every minute, you know. Plus, I like to live very fancy, so it's not going to last too long in that way.
it's true. We're going to
So,
be, I think we should be in Newport next weekend because of the more rain's coming. Okay.
yeah, next week. Yeah.
Well, thank you
next
everyone
week.
for joining us
Thank
today.
you.
We are going to go ahead and
Thank
wrap
you,
up now.
ladies.
I got a hard out at the top of the hour here. Thank you so much, everyone, for
Thank you,
joining.
everybody. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you,
And for the
KT.
record, I will be
Bye-bye.
recasting this on my LinkedIn profile, so everyone can learn the lessons that we learned today. And we'll be doing that hopefully tomorrow. So thank you guys, and look for the recast.
So nice to meet
Perfect.
everybody.
Thank
You
you.
All right,
too.
see you.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good
Bye.
weekend.
Bye-bye.